Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this evening for the Governor's School for the Arts. Where we are talking. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this evening for the Governor's School for the Arts. Sorry, I had my own Facebook live stream up on my computer. I'm not sure if you all can hear that or not. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Governor's School for the Arts webinar tonight about musical theater, our musical theater program. My name is Nick Kovalt. I'm the Executive Director of GSA. I'm also a proud alum of our vocal music program. And we're really excited to talk to you all tonight about musical theater, the program itself, what it takes to apply, what we're looking for. So thanks for joining us, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end, so we can make sure that all of your questions are answered. So we want to start by just learning a little bit more about who's joining us here on Zoom tonight. So if you could just jump in the chat, say hello, tell us your name, what county you're coming from. Just so we can see who you are, and also you all have a chance to kind of see who else is here. Hi, Lola from Fayette County. Hey, Emery from Danville, Boyle County. Afton, Woodford. Hi, Gabby. Right. All right. Thanks, Kelly. Glad Annie's in rehearsal. It's awesome. She's doing the thing. That's great. I'm also going to launch a poll really quickly. Again, so we can just know a little bit more about you all. Just kind of curious to know if you're a student, a parent. We know you're all interested in musical theater, but maybe if you're interested in another art form as well, you can tell us that. If you've attended or viewed a recording of one of these sessions before this fall, and also if you've applied to GSA before, which would mean that you are currently a junior and that you applied last year. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to fill that out. Hey, Celia from Rockcastle County. All right, give our poll just a couple more seconds here. All right, so let's see what we've got. So it looks like a majority of the folks joining us tonight are students who are currently eligible to apply for GSA, which means you're in the 10th or 11th grade. That's awesome. Good for you for taking this in your own hands and doing your own research. And then it's really nice to have a few parents here as well. I'm willing to bet at least one of you is here because your child might be in rehearsal or class of some kind. So parents, thank you for joining us. You are a pivotal part of your child's journey in the arts, and also we recognize every GSA application from a student represents support from mentors and adults in their lives, so thank you all. It's cool to see that you all are interested in a few other art forms as well. Maybe unsurprisingly, dance, drama, and vocal music are the top there. You all attended a virtual info session before. That's fantastic. And some of you have applied before, for some of you this is the first time, so that is awesome. Now that we know a little bit more about you, and I've had a chance to introduce myself, I'd like to introduce this evening's guest of honor, one might say. She is on our musical theater faculty, is an amazing artist and educator in her own right, both at GSA and beyond as well. So glad to welcome Donna Richards here tonight. Donna, thank you so much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Donna Richards. I am a chair of the musical theater department, which means I push paper around a lot and help with programming and that. I've been with the Governor's School for the Arts since the year 2000. So that was the initial year. So I've helped develop this program. I am a proud alumni of UCLA with a BFA in dance performance and choreography. I spent 13 and a half years in New York City as a performer, doing Broadway and touring productions of musicals. And I now live just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm a freelance teacher and choreographer in the area. So excuse the messy hair and that. I just got through with classes. So that's what I do. And at GSA, I am the dance component of musical theater. So teach all the dance classes, dance programs, and do all the choreography for small group numbers, large production numbers, and all of that good stuff as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. So on brand that you're coming to us live from a dance studio. I love it. Awesome. Well, Donna, we'll come back to you in just a moment. I'm going to share my screen briefly, and I know that all of you have attended or viewed a recording of one of these sessions before, but especially for anyone who might be watching this via recording, we're just going to go over some fast facts about GSA. All right. So, if you aren't already aware, today's session is part of a larger series of virtual info sessions that we're hosting throughout the autumn for applicants, parents, and educators. So we hope you'll take advantage of these resources to learn more. We have one more of these art form specific webinars to do. It's tomorrow evening. It's for vocal music. So if you're interested in another art form other than vocal music and musical theater, a recording of that webinar should be up on our website. On December 1st, we're just going to do an overview of GSA, that GSA 101 presentation that we started with back in October. We're just going to repeat it, see what questions folks might have developed since October. And then on December 15th, we're just going to be on Zoom to answer any questions, open Q&A. Remember, though, these info sessions are not the only way or necessarily the best way to get information about GSA. So you can contact us at the GSA helpline, and that phone number is right there, 502-566-5192. Or by emailing us at gsainfo@kentuckyperformingarts.org. Of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram. And just keep in mind that there are no scary adults at GSA waiting to judge you. We love chatting with our applicants, and it is not only our pleasure, but it's our job to help you out. So we want to be in touch with you, support you however we can. So feel free to reach out. So the summer program, it's a 3-week residential summer program that takes place on the college campus. Students attend for one of 9 art forms, and the program is completely tuition free. If you haven't heard, we recently made the very exciting announcement that we are able to double the size of the program for the next 3 years, thanks to supplemental funding provided by the Kentucky Department of Education. So this means we expect to grow from our previous class size of 256 to accepting approximately 500 students for the summer of 2022. Now, we're still finalizing exactly how, when, and where that expansion is going to take place. And there are probably many questions you might have about the expansion that we won't have answers for just yet. That said, we will release any and all information as soon as we have it. What we do know is that GSA summer program will take place in June and or July of next summer. And at least part of the student body will have their GSA experience on the campus of our current institution, the University of Kentucky. To determine the class size for each specific art form in our expanded model, we're looking at how many students have applied to each art form over the past few years and trying to ensure all art forms have similar as possible acceptance ratios. So that just means that while the total number of students we accept across all art forms will double, some art forms are going to grow in size more than others. So while these numbers are subject to change, for musical theater, I can share with you that we currently anticipate going from our current musical theater size of accepting 26 students to accepting a total of 62 musical theater students for the summer of 2022. So that means we're going from accepting 26 students a year in musical theater to what we estimate to be 62. That's a really, really exciting statistic for our musical theater applicants. Just a reminder that you have to be a sophomore or junior currently to apply. We're not going to ask you for your GPA, SAT, or ACT scores during the process, and you can apply for up to 2 art forms, which is good for some of you since I saw you have interest in other areas. There is an application fee of $30 or $35 total if you're applying for 2 art forms. That is waived with the click of a button for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So again, Donna and I are thrilled to talk to you all about musical theater today, and we're confident that today's sessions are going to be helpful, but remember, it's probably not going to be 100% comprehensive. There's some other important resources you should utilize to learn more about the program and the application, all of which are available at kentuckygsa.org. Be sure to read the applicant guide for your art form of interest. We'll review the applicant guide as part of today's conversation, but you should take time to carefully review it on your own. And start preparing and uploading your materials as soon as possible. Don't wait until the January 9th deadline, or maybe don't even wait till the couple days before it. That is going to sneak up right after all of us after winter break. So we encourage you to get your application started and submitted as soon as possible. Once people upload their applications by January 9th, on February 18th, we will announce which of those applicants are invited to proceed into a second and final round. We call that the final round, and the people who advance into it are GSA finalists. And then on March 18th and 19th, we will have auditions and reviews for those who've been forwarded to the final round. We're still waiting to see if those are going to be in person or virtual, but those who are invited to those auditions, we'll find out more then. By April 15th, we'll have our accepted and alternate lists posted. And like I said, GSA 2022, dates still to be determined, but certainly to be in June and or July of 2022. All right. Something I failed to mention at the top of the presentation, but I see folks are already doing a great job of, is please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions as you have them. We may answer some of them organically throughout the conversation, but we'll come back to those at the end of the presentation. You can also wait till the end to put your questions in, but do use the Q&A feature instead of the chat. Just easier for us to make sure we're answering your questions. And also, if you're attending live on Zoom today, after today's webinar, you're going to receive a very, very brief, like maybe 4-question survey. Please take that survey. It's super helpful for us to understand who we're serving for these presentations and how we can do better in the future. So please take that survey. All right, so I am now going to hop back over to my other screen here in just a moment, and we are going to take a look at the Musical Theater Applicant Guide as the way in which we'll discuss the musical theater program with Donna. So bear with me for just a moment. All right, so what you are looking at right now is the GSA homepage. So when you go to our website, kentuckygsa.org, this is what you're going to see. If you're interested in learning more about that expansion I mentioned, you can click that link right there. But for today's webinar, I want to take us to this section right here, GSA 2022 Application, Important Dates, and Virtual Info Sessions. We're going to click Learn More. I'm showing you how to access the applicant guide if you're wondering why I'm going to our website. As you scroll down, you'll see important dates, info sessions, and deadlines. That's where you can find recordings of other webinars and also check out the application deadline. And then here is the applicant guide section. But I just want to point out down here is the link to the actual application itself. If you haven't started your application, that's where you can go to start it. But first, because we're an applicant who wants to learn everything about the process as soon as possible, we're going to go look at the musical theater applicant. So this is a PDF document. I'm going to zoom in. I know some of you all might have smaller screens. And the first thing you're going to see in the applicant guide is a program description. And this is simply a description of what it's like to study musical theater at GSA. So this is maybe the one part of the applicant guide that I'm going to read fully and verbatim. And then we'll turn it back over to Donna to learn a little bit more about what it means to attend GSA for vocal music, musical theater. Goodness. At GSA, musical theater students study dancing, acting, and singing with GSA faculty and visiting artists. The musical theater program is designed to provide students with intensive study and stage movement, jazz and tap dance, voice for song and spoken text, energy work for relaxation and physical awareness, scene study and monologue work, script and character analysis, an overview of musical theater history, research and criticism of selected works from the musical theater lexicon, and audition preparation. Students present a staged performance of solo and ensemble work on the final day of the program. So Donna, that's a pretty comprehensive overview, but I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. For our triple threats out there, what is it like to attend GSA for musical theater? What's the program all about?
So what we try to do is provide the students with not only the nuts and bolts of what it takes to be a musical theater performer, proper vocal training, proper dramatic pedagogy, proper dance technique, all of those things, but how do you tie all three of those together into a performance quality? And so while you're going to get all those nuts and bolts things, we're going to try to help you begin to understand how to put those nuts and bolts together to make yourself a viable musical theater performer. And we also deal with what is it really like in the real world, so to speak, to be a musical theater performer. So, especially with the dance portion of the program, I talk a great deal about anatomy and physiology of a dancer. What is a good hurt? What is a bad hurt? What do you need to strengthen? How do you keep yourself strong, um, both physically, mentally, and quite a bit about nutrition because 8 shows a week is a lot of shows, and the body needs to be well taken care of. So, yeah, that's kind of how we tie all those things together. Those things that are listed, you will study, but you're also going to study how they relate to one another and how do you put that all together to create a performance.
And Donna, I love that. It's not just how to be an artist, but how to take care of yourself as an artist. That's wonderful. I know that the past couple of years have been a little unique with the pandemic, but in terms of this staged performance of solo and ensemble work in the final day of the program, can you tell us a little bit more about what that has historically been? Do we stage like a full musical, or is it more of a review?
No, we do bits and pieces, so the production numbers will come from different musicals. Sharon Kennison, who is on faculty, is a well accomplished director, and she actually writes the shows. So what we do is first thing, our first priority is to create an audition package for each student for um, colleges and conservatories, something that fits you as a person, who you are, that you can easily relate to, um, that fits all the criteria of the different colleges and conservatories, that you would be able to have that audition package. That's our top priority, to help you hone that, help create that, and help you understand how to add to your audition book over time. Uh, then what she does is we take those uh, different pieces and we create a show out of it. So it's not a musical review exactly. It's more of there will be at least 4 production numbers scattered throughout the show. There will be scenes and song and possibly dance movement for small ensemble groups. And in between all of that comes your songs, one of your songs or your monologue out of your package, and we relate them to one another so it becomes a conversation on stage.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. All right, I'm gonna jump back into my screen share here. We'll go back to the applicant guide to talk about the recommendation process. So the next section of the applicant guide is section 2, preliminary round application requirements. This is everything in this section, or excuse me, everything in this section is what you need to turn in by January 9th and upload into Accepted. So the first area is all about the recommendation process. So each applicant has to identify 2 recommenders. I'm going to stop sharing my screen while I talk about this just because there's a lot of text that we're not going to read there. But if you have applied in the past, which I know some of you have, there is a change here from previous years. Previously, we've required you to give us 1 recommender who is a teacher and 1 who is a school administrator. And this year, we're kind of doing away with those job title requirements, as it were. So in the past, your school administrator would have received a slightly different recommendation form than your teacher. But this year, we're sending both of those people the same recommendation form. We do ask about their perception of your artistic skill or artistic potential. So if you do have 1 to 2 people in your life who know you artistically, who've had a chance to see you, maybe sing, dance, perform in some way, act, they will probably be the best recommenders for you to use because they can speak to you artistically. That said, we totally understand everyone does not have those people. And so it is totally fine if you don't have 1 or 2 recommenders who have seen you perform. We understand that that's a totally normal and valid experience. So it could also be someone like a math teacher or a youth minister or a coach from the sports team. So really just someone who can speak to you, if not as an artist, as a student, or as someone contributing to a community or a learning environment or a team or an organization. We encourage you to seek those folks out, get their permission to be your recommender before you put them into the application. They'll receive a questionnaire that will probably take them about 5 minutes, where they can just tell us a little bit more about you. So, Donna, tell us a little bit more from your perspective as somebody who reviews these recommendations. What makes for a good recommender? What makes for a good recommendation? Maybe what are some things that students should think about as they're engaging with their recommenders before that form is sent in?
Well, basically, the recommendations not only speak to what maybe they feel your talent potential is, but actually, when I read them, I'm more interested. You're going to show me your talent. So I'm more interested in who you are as a human being because that's ultimately important in becoming a good artist. So they don't have to be fancy or flowery. I'm not like, we don't have keywords or anything like that. We just wanted an honest opinion of who you are as a human being. That's what we want in a recommendation. So make sure it's someone that knows you, yeah, and ask them. I mean, to this day, when I apply for things, anybody I'm going to put on my out as a recommend, on my resume to recommend me for a position, I make sure I let them know that's going to happen first, and make sure they're okay with that. And then, so somebody that not only knows your talent, but but basically somebody that knows you as a person.
That's great. Yeah. Like I said, we do ask about artistic ability and potential on there, but there are many more questions, more about
Yeah.
personality on that recommendation form than there are about artistic skill and potential. Thanks, Donna. Right. Hopping back over to our applicant guide. As I scroll past all the great text about the recommendation process that you can dig into if you haven't read that already. The next part of the application are our two essay prompt responses. So the first one that you see labeled as B here is a personal short essay. This is a written response to a prompt, 250 words max. The prompt being describe your personal connection to your art form or creative practice. Why and how is it important to you on a personal level? And then we're also asking you to submit a verbal response to a second prompt by way of a personal question video. This is you just recording yourself. It can be on your couch in your living room, anywhere that's a quiet, presentable environment. Doesn't have to be anything fancy or highly produced. We're curious to know in 90 seconds or less about your vision for how your individual artistic work or creative practice can impact others. How do you want to affect others through art? And what response do you hope others have to your work? So Donna, as folks are crafting their responses to these essay prompts, what can they keep in mind? What are we looking for?
Just an honest conversation. I mean, yeah, don't read something to us. We want to know who you are. So speak from your heart as to what your art form means to you and how you feel it could impact, or the impact you want it to have on others or your community or whoever that target is for your art form. You know, each performance is different, and depending upon what you are performing, and maybe you're targeting young people, maybe you're targeting a general societal issue. How do you want that? How do you want that to pan out? How do you want to contribute? Um, Art is a conversation with our audience, and how do we want to affect them? So just be honest and just be real. You know, this isn't, say what you feel, not what you think we might want to hear. that doesn't tell us who you are. And we just want to get to know you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think some folks it's so easy to get, and I know I deal with this sometimes when I'm filling out like a application to something or something like that. It's so easy to get caught up in what do they want me to say, or how can I show them that I have the most profound artistic thought ever. And yeah, it's don't worry about being profound. Worry about being authentic, right? Like you said, honest. And I'm going to rephrase something that you just said that was so eloquent. But don't worry about what you think we want to hear, because what we want to hear is what you think. Right. All right. So moving on past the essays, I want to point out briefly that we do have this section called art form specific questions. So these are just a few questions that we're going to ask you about what kind of access to arts training you've had. I want to really emphasize there are no right or wrong answers to these questions. We are neither looking for to profile students who have had lots of access to arts training, so we're not interested in working with them, nor are we looking to weed out students who haven't had access to arts training because they're not going to be a good fit for GSA. Rather, we're just looking to understand a little bit more about you and the training you've had, just because that's going to help us understand your materials in as much context as possible. So I'm actually going to share those questions with you briefly. And I'm in a test application, so a few of the images you might be seeing on your screen right now might look a little strange. But these questions for musical theater specifically are going to be, does your school have a drama program and or drama classes? And how are you involved? Have you studied voice privately? Have you had any formal dance training? And if so, list the dance forms and the years taken. Is there a community theater in your area? And if so, how are you involved? And have you had any other theatrical training not described above? So pretty straightforward. Donna, anything you'd like to add about those questions and or whether or not there are right or wrong answers to them?
There aren't any right or wrong answers to them. So the thing of it is if you are auditioning in a performance art, whether you've taken voice for 20 years or you've taken 5 voice lessons, or you've never taken a voice lesson, that has no bearing on the voice that we hear to us. So the first thing we're looking at is what kind of passion do you have for your art form? What kind of talent do you have? And the training, if you have it, great. If you don't have any, but you're talented, then that's fine too. You are talented, and that's a win-win. So that has absolutely no bearing on our decision. It just gives us a general idea, and then we know what we can do to help you best. That's what those questions are for, is so that we know when you come into the program, how can we help you best?
Great. Thank you, Donna. All right. Speaking of performing and singing and acting, let's talk a little bit about the monologue and song videos. So this is, sort of the meaty part in terms of your performance as an artist in the application. So we are asking our musical theater applicants for 3 videos. Each video is up to 1 minute. So there's going to be 1 monologue video and 2 song videos. Now, for each of these videos, we have instructions here for what you might call slating, how to introduce yourself at the beginning of each video, just your name, and then whether it's the monologue or the song video, we have some instructions for you there. Again, for the monologue video, we're going to give you some guidelines here that we're not going to go through all of them right now, but do pay attention to these guidelines. They are meant to support you in putting forth the best possible materials possible. So we're going to give you, some guidelines like it has to be memorized, and consider not portraying characters that are maybe not your age or like maybe 5 times your age. That might not be the best choice. So spend some time with these as you're selecting your monologue. We're also going to give you some shows to avoid using monologues from. And then for your song videos, these are 2 videos, each with a different song and each 60 seconds max. We're asking you to perform at least 21 bars or measures of each song, but not to exceed 32. And again, some more guidelines about memorization and so on. One of these songs should come from a contemporary musical, and by contemporary, we mean a musical from 1970 or later. We've got a few examples there, although they're just examples, not recommendations. And then one song should come from a standard musical, which means written before the 1970s. One of them should be up-tempo and one should be a ballad, but it doesn't matter which is up-tempo and which is a ballad. And in terms of song accompaniment, we highly encourage you, if you are able to record your songs with live piano accompaniment. We all understand that that's not possible for everyone for a lot of different reasons, one of them being we're still in a pandemic. So if you're not able to record your song with live piano accompaniment, we certainly understand that. We will not hold it against you. Still encourage you to maybe use some kind of a recorded accompaniment if possible. We've got some guidelines here about that, so please spend some time with those. And then our additional video requirements are just some best tips, best practices rather, for creating the best possible video. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Donna, anything you'd like to share about the monologue video, the song videos, what we're looking for, some best practices for folks as they're making their selections and putting these videos together?
Make sure you can relate to your material. So if you make sure that like, especially with the monologues, you're very, very comfortable with it, and that you really relate to what the monologue is dealing with. We're not looking for some dramatized preparation. We're looking for the very best you in the presentation you give in your audition. So that's my big thing. Be able to relate to the material, pick a song that showcases your voice. So doesn't have to be rangy, but it does have to be a song you can relate to, because there's more to musical theater than singing a song and having a pretty voice. You have to be able to tell a story, and you have to be able to act that song as well. So that's what the whole process is about. Make sure that you are really comfortable with that material and that it displays the very best you, not who you think that character should be. So that's why you need to have it be relatable to you.
Authenticity comes back into the conversation. It's a theme. I'm noticing a theme. All right. If you all have other questions about the song and monologue videos, be sure to add them into the Q&A feature. Glad to take them. And if we don't get to them today, don't forget that GSA Helpline and GSA Info email. Jumping back over to our applicant guide, we're going to skip over this next part, but I want to point out that it's there, the final round requirements. So this is what you can expect if you advance to the second and final round of auditions and reviews for GSA. Again, we're still figuring out if those are going to be in person or virtual, but this will capture kind of the spirit of what you can expect no matter what. I will point out that this is when dance comes into the picture. So there is a short movement exercise. Donna can speak to this more later if she wants, but I will say we are not going to be asking you to do splits or backflips in this short movement exercise. It is accessible, very, very accessible. So if you were maybe like me when I was in high school, and when I went to go audition for the High School Musical, the dance portion of the audition was the part that brought me the most anxiety. I encourage you to take a deep breath and have no fear. This is it's meant to be a very accessible movement exercise. The next section is very important, but I feel like because it's toward the end of the applicant guide, it sometimes gets skipped over, and that's the criteria. So what is criteria? How can you use criteria? How do we use it? Well, criteria, put simply, is what you're being scored on. So if you were to look at the sheet that Donna had in front of her when she was reviewing your application, it would look just like this, except it'd have little scores underneath each section. In each section, you're going to see the title of the criteria. So for instance, vocal health and range. And then after that, you're going to see a sentence or two about how an ideal candidate would exhibit that piece of criteria. So you can really use this through as like a lens to think through your materials, or maybe if you're showing your video materials to someone else before you submit them, ask them to look for these things, as well as you looking for these things as well, and asking yourself, are there parts of this that I know more or less about? How can I research these criteria and focus on these as I create my materials? So the criteria for musical theater are vocal health and range, connection of voice and text script analysis, and truthfulness to character, and dedication to art form growth and community. This is actually the one piece of criteria that is present in all 9 of our art forms, going back to a lot of what we've described in terms of looking for not just great singers, dancers, and actors, but also great humans who are interested in growing in their art form, passionate about their art form. They want to contribute to the GSA community. There is one final piece of criteria down here about dance concepts that only applies to the final round. So, Donna, looking at the criteria here, anything you want to emphasize or underline for folks who are watching today?
No, not really. I think it's pretty straightforward, So the choice of your material is important here. Don't sing a song that is outside your range. All of that is just, again, picking material that showcases you and presents the very best you.
Great. All right, so moving on from the criteria, and we're getting close to our Q&A time. The final section that we'll talk about today is the tips section. So I want to emphasize that these are not meant to be just generic audition tips. We at GSA actually work together each year to put together a list of tips specific to our process. So if there's something like, we wish that students just knew X, Y, and Z when they walked through the door, or there's this common mistake that folks make that if only we could get to them before the process to help maybe direct them in another way. We're going to try our best to reflect that here in the tip sections, to spend some time with this. It's not super long, but there's some good information in here. Donna, I'm just curious, do you have like a top tip or two that you think is really, really relevant or super important to musical theater applicants?
No, not really.
I know we've talked a lot about a lot of tips already tonight, so.
Well, when you choose a monologue, I think what I would suggest is, my tip for you on your monologue is know what the play, having read the play. Where the monologue comes in the action, and so that you understand why this character would say what they're saying in the monologue. If your monologue doesn't have that background, then create it for yourself. So in other words, create the backstory. Why are they saying this? Why are they reacting to things this way? What's making this action happen? And same thing with the songs. It helps if you know where they lie in the musical. Why is it being sung? The why is huge in musical theater performance. So if I was going to give you a tip, know the why.
That's great. Thank you, Donna. All right. So briefly, I just want to point out the end of the applicant guide here is just a timeline, application timelines, just reminding you of those dates we talked about earlier. But that's the whole contents of the applicant guide. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So we've now done a pretty thorough overview of what the application process is like for musical theater, what you have to upload, what we're looking for, what the program is that you're applying for in the first place. So now we just love for you all to help us direct the conversation. What are you curious about? What are your questions? So feel free to go ahead and start putting those in the Q&A feature if you have them. While you do that, I do see that we have one question already that was asked earlier, a great question, about what is the ratio of applicants to accepted students? And this person asked specifically for musical theater and creative writing. although I think this answer applies to all 9 art forms. So we will usually see between 1,200 to 1,400 applications for GSA. So we don't know where we'll fall in that range this year, of course, until January, but usually between 1,200 and 1,400 applications for what has historically been 256 spots, but is now going to be probably a little over 500. So that's, again, great news for this year's applicants. We are, as we're adjusting those class sizes, like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to pay attention to really as much as we can evening out acceptance ratios across art forms. So like there's not the easy one to get into and the hard one to get into. And what I can say is that we're predicting that acceptance ratios for all art forms will probably be about 30-something percent. 30-something percent. So for each art form, we're predicting it's probable that each art form will accept about 30-something percent of their applicants, given our new class size and given the history of application pools that we've seen for each art form. So another question we have, this is a fun, open-ended question. Thank you, Celia, is what is something that really makes an artist stand out to you? Donna?
For me, it is someone who presents the material in the most honest and authentic way. So, not over decorated, not like a normal human being. What do you think the song means? What do you think the character is thinking as they say these words? You know, that makes an artist.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna bring it back to authenticity and like that somebody really just lets you see them, which to me is also vulnerability too. And that someone is focused on the connection between the artist and the audience as opposed to just portraying an emotion or portraying like, I am happy, now I'm sad, but rather we're here together experiencing this story together. I'm not reviewing your application, but I just still answered the question personally. So take Donna, whatever Donna says, listen to her more than me. But I just thought it was a great question, so I want to answer. All right. Any other questions? So just give you all just another moment to see if there's any other questions. Again, just a reminder that if you have any questions that come up, you can call us at 502-566-5192. Again, that's 502-566-5192, or you can email us at gsainfo@Kentucky Performing Arts. Another thing I'd like to remind you all is that everyone at GSA is already on your side. We want you to do well. I think sometimes when we can walk into an application or an audition environment, you're super, it's natural sometimes to feel scared about like, I hope that I do well enough for them. And just know we already want you to do well. We already think it's really awesome that you're putting in your application. We know that that takes ambition, courage, vulnerability. You know, it can be kind of an intimidating thing to put your art out there for relative strangers. So just know we're already on your side. So someone asked, will all of the students that get accepted be able to live on campus? Yes. In fact, you do have to live on campus during GSA to participate in the program for the full 3 weeks. So yes, all students that are accepted will live on campus. We live in what's called Holmes Hall, Holmes, at UK. It's a fantastic facility. It's UK's fine arts dorm, which means that actually some of the facilities that musical theater uses are connected to the building. And there's actually floor plans for the dorms and everything on UK's website if you want to go check out Holmes Hall. Roommates are not chosen randomly. They are assigned though. And what we do is we do our best to assign you a roommate who is from a different art form in a different part of the state than you are, so that we can kind of heighten the sense of exchange that GSA is all about. It's one of the best things about the program is that we get to meet people from different places, different experiences, different walks of life, different interests. So you are assigned a roommate from a different art form and hopefully a different part of the state as best we can. and you share a bathroom with that one person. You have your own bedroom with a door that closes. You share a living room with them. All right, now our questions are coming in. Donna, for scoring auditions, well, we can both answer this. For scoring auditions, are there any categories that are weighted more than others?
No.
Yeah.
No. They're all of equal weight. All of those things that are listed there as the criteria, each one of those is important. Not one of those weighs more than the other.
Absolutely. Thank you. We consider students comprehensively and holistically is a word that Donna used earlier. So we will be using all of those criteria to evaluate a student holistically and in context. Someone asked a great question. Do you anticipate having 2 sessions this summer to accommodate the larger group? I will say that we do anticipate having those 500 plus students in 2 different sessions. I mentioned earlier that we don't yet know just exactly what that's going to look like. It's been one of the fun challenges of this growth happening so quickly is that we've had to work pretty quickly to reassess how we're going to format the summer given this growth. So we're still in the process of figuring that out. I anticipate that we'll know more in December. I hope early December, maybe mid-December, that we'll be announcing that as far and wide as possible once we know what that looks like and what those session dates are. We did originally, before we knew about this growth, have GSA planned for June 26th to July 16th of next year. Those dates are probably going to change. So GSA, if you're attending GSA next summer, you will have your experience in June and or July. But those dates that we had out earlier are probably not going to be correct anymore for anyone. So the 2 sessions will probably look a little bit different. So more to come on the dates and the exact format. And then there is a question about, is there a showcase of some sort at the end of the 3 weeks? That person may or may not have been able to join us for the beginning of the webinar. We covered that toward the top. So I encourage you to check out the recording of the webinar that we'll be putting out in the next couple days and catch maybe the first 10 minutes where Donna and I talk about that. And for the dance part of musical theater, if we already have dance shoes such as tap, point, ballet, jazz, lyrical, etc., well, we need to bring those. Before I turn that over to Donna, I will say we do send students a packing list and a supply list before the program, so you totally know what you need. If for some reason you don't have access to something that we're asking you to bring and you can't get it, we will work with you on that. Again, this is a tuition-free program, and parallel to that, we want everyone to be able to come to the program regardless of what they can or can't buy beforehand. So, but Donna, you want to tell us a little bit about dancing shoes and any other materials that we might ask students to bring with them?
We pretty much use standards, so black jazz shoes, black jazz taps, and ballet shoes, because we will do ballet class. We will not do any point work, and won't be using anything like split soles or half sole shoes or anything like that. Mainly, we try to stick to what you would use if you were performing in musical theater. The one thing that I don't normally ask for is character shoes. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna. And someone has asked, is it possible to do GSP and GSA? The answer to that is yes, under some circumstances. So the ways that you can do GSP and GSA is, one, you can attend GSA the summer after your sophomore year of high school, if you're currently a sophomore, and then you can attend GSP the following summer after your junior year, because for GSA, again, you have to currently be a sophomore or junior to apply. For GSP, you can only be a junior. The only other way you could attend GSP is if somehow the GSA session that you were accepted for ended before the GSP session that you were accepted for began. So if somehow once GSA announces our dates, I know GSP is a 5-week program, so we're talking about 8 weeks of your summer now, so that sounds like it might not be possible, but we'll see. If somehow the GSP, one of the GSA sessions does not overlap with GSP, you could theoretically attend both. But for both of our programs, which we work closely with GSP, I'm an alum of GSP, you cannot miss one program to attend, part of one program to attend the other. While we're talking about Kentucky's governor schools, just a quick shout out for our third governor school here in Kentucky, the Governor School for Entrepreneurship. If you're not aware of that program, GSE, the Governor School for Entrepreneurship, I highly encourage you to check them out. They're pretty awesome. I think you, don't hold me to this, but I think you might even be able to apply to them as a freshman. So that is another program that you can apply for. Well, it looks like those are our questions for the evening. So thank you all so much for those. And Donna, thank you so much for your time and your energy tonight. It's been really lovely chatting with you about musical theater at GSA. And I guess, Donna, just to kind of close this out, we've got some passionate young artists from Kentucky and their champions tuning in tonight. What's one message you want to leave them with?
If this is really your passion, if this is what you really love, then do it. Go for it. Our world today is pretty unpredictable, as we all are well aware of now. But there are 1,000 different ways to do theater. You don't have to be in New York City to do musical theater. There is regional theater. There is all over the United States. You can do musical theater abroad. I mean, I look at it this way. May not have made me rich, but it made my life full. And you only live once, do what you love. That's just the way I feel about things. So, yeah, that's my message to you guys. If this is you, or if you want to find out if this is you or not, really you, then apply and give it let's do it. Let's find out. Let's find out together.
I love it. Thank you, Donna. And yeah, you never know until you put your name in the hat, right? So again, we encourage you all to join us in the application process, submit your materials. We'd love to see your work and what's important to you. At GSA, we believe this about every young artist we encounter, regardless of whether or not you attend the summer program. You are an artist, and as an artist, you are an extremely important person to society. You have so much to offer the world through innovation, connection, adaptability in this unpredictable world. You have so many important gifts that you deserve to keep nurturing because you are important as an artist. So we think you're awesome. We hope to see your work in the application process. And regardless of whether or not you work with us at the summer program, we're cheering you on as an artist because the world needs you. The world needs artists. So thank you all so much, Donna. Again, thank you, and don't forget to take that survey that should pop up when we end the webinar here in just a moment. And we look forward to seeing your all's applications. Good luck and have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.